Hey everyone, and welcome to the Defining Your Life podcast, where we focus on living in our purpose, practicing presence, and activating our power in each moment. I'm Marsharelle, your resident pep talk provider, and I invite you to join me as we continue to learn, lift each other up, and strive to level up together. Because we are never finished defining our lives, and it takes a village, so let's build one. Stay tuned for the episode. Hey everyone, I hope that you are all doing well, feeling good, and are safe. It's been a strange week around here. Between the Canada wildfires and a portion of a major highway in my area collapsing due to a tanker crash, it's just been weird around here. But I'm thankful that my family has not been impacted, and I pray for those who have been for sure. In more ways than I have mentioned, there are so many daily reminders of things to be grateful for. I'm not here to pretend that there aren't times in life when it can be hard to see the light. But if you are struggling right now, I feel compelled to tell you to be encouraged. And if you need an additional lift or a listening ear, drop me a line and let's chat. Now, if you felt imposter syndrome creeping up this week, I hope that you were able to quickly put it in check and move on about your day confidently. It might be back, but you know what to do when it peeks its head in the doorway. Fight back immediately. Remember all that you are capable of and keep moving forward. Today, I want to walk down a different path, one where many of us tend to get lost or confused. An uncomfortable world in the beginning, but a beautiful one once you visit and stay a while. I'm talking about the world of boundaries. I'm not going to lie, y'all. I have one bag on the boat and one on the dock, but I'm on my way. In some areas of your life, boundaries can be harder to manage than in others, but they are needed and so beneficial once you get the hang of it. Now, boundaries tend to get a bad rap, just like balance in a world where hustle is the culture. But you know who you are without boundaries? You are whoever everyone else wants you to be. A lack of control within your own life because you haven't set grounded standards for others to operate from. What are some things that come to mind for you when you think about boundaries? Immediately for me, I just thought about self-respect and peace. Self-respect because setting a boundary requires you to, in some ways, stick up for yourself, not be run over, right? It means that you are putting yourself first in the most healthy sense. And peace because I experience more calm and assuredness when I have drawn the line and I'm not waiting for someone else to draw it for me. Now, to be clear, setting boundaries doesn't mean shutting everyone out, turning your back on people in need, or even those you love or who have been there for you when you were in need. A boundary, simply defined, is something that indicates or fixes a limit or extent. And you can do that while still leaving room for others. I have found that perspective helps you to place boundaries appropriately. When you are viewing something through the right lens, it really helps you to determine how to set boundaries in particular instances. But be sure that your lens is clear because you don't want a distorted view to guide you. I came across an interesting article from thescienceofpeople.com this week that lays out 5 steps to setting healthy boundaries. I linked the full article in the show notes, so please go check it out when you have time. But here are the steps they recommend. Number 1, define your limits. What supports you versus what detracts from your well-being. Number 2, openly communicate your boundaries to people in your life. Now, y'all, as I read this one aloud, I'm reminded of how challenging this can be. For people that we love, people that we interact with every day, it can be much more difficult to set boundaries healthily and without guilt. But if I had to guess, the boundaries we set with those closest to us are ultimately the most impactful. So it sounds to me like we need to take some time to reflect, get out those journals or other tools of choice, and work through why it's so hard to set boundaries with certain people. Is it just me? Oh, okay, my bad. Anyway, number 3 from the list. Remind people if needed, but always stick to your boundaries. Oof. That's also hard, right? What's the balance between letting something roll off your back or confronting someone when they have clearly taken advantage of you when you were being kind? In my experience, this does prove challenging in the beginning, but once you remind someone once or twice, or in extreme cases, just start to move differently, they get the drift, and then you don't have to remind them anymore. But this is definitely not effective if you're not sticking to your own boundaries. I believe that more so than reminding other people, you need to remind yourself to stick to your boundaries. How can you expect someone else to fall in line or get the drift if you are not consistent? Someone asking you to borrow money every other week. One week you tell them no, the next week you're fussing, but you give them the money anyway. Of course, they're going to keep coming back. In their mind, they just caught you on the wrong day. But boundaries that you stick to will help you stay in control in these situations, not the other way around. That brings me to the 4th point from the article. Don't be afraid to say no to things that don't serve you. And number 5, take time for yourself. People can only do what you allow them to do. That's not a new thing, right? We all know that. And this doesn't have to be across the board in your life. Maybe you have a weak spot for just one person. But how do you feel about yourself when you don't stand by the boundary that you set? Probably not good, or you wouldn't need to set the boundary in the first place, right? So remember that. Go back to that question whenever it comes up. How does not holding to this boundary make me feel right now? How will it make me feel later? If the answer is not good in any way, you will need to assess how you move forward. Setting boundaries is not shutting people down. It's providing yourself with the resources and bandwidth to help, love, and show up for people and in situations grandly and fully because you haven't stretched to places that leave you depleted, only to offer a trail of crumbs when you do show up for others because you've been spread so thin and then there's nothing left for yourself. Now, it seems there's like a trend going on with this particular narrative. You all can tell me if it's true, but I've heard on more than one occasion recently that we should only be giving from a place of overflow. Keeping that wall up while you wait for your cup to be so full that it overflows. I don't know about that, but I do believe that we need to learn how to manage a cup that's reasonably full as it relates to boundaries. And in most instances, we shouldn't be giving from our last sip. It's like the whole put your oxygen mask on first deal, right? You've heard it a million times. You have to have something to give. But notice I said in most instances, because sometimes we are called to give from what feels like empty, a place of sacrifice. And you might be like, how, God? Why? But when you are called to give in such instances, you will feel strongly about it, knowing it's the right decision, not just a decision. Through prayer, discernment, you'll know when you need to take that path, but just know that from that place of empty, from that place of sacrifice, that's not the standard. There's so much beauty in boundaries, y'all. By setting boundaries, we open ourselves up to freedom, a weight lifted from our shoulders, right? Not us being crushed by the expectations that were never positively set. The ability to give freely, to support freely from a balanced cup that may or may not be overflowing, but a cup of choice and not force. Today's quote comes from Brené Brown. By now, y'all know she's one of my favorites. She says, "Compassionate people ask for what they need They say no when they need to, and when they say yes, they mean it. They're compassionate because their boundaries keep them out of resentment. That's a word right there. So stay compassionate, y'all. Know that those boundaries will allow you to do so. Thanks so much for listening today. I hope that what you have heard has been beneficial. If so, please don't forget to what? Rate, review, subscribe, and share the pod. And let me know how you've been experiencing the beauty of boundaries in your life as of late. I can't wait to chat with you all again next week. Take care until then.